Next Wave Gaming. What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in for this week's SPL review from Next Wave Gaming, going over Week 6. With us this week, we have Half Devil from Exposed Secrets. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And we have from Next Wave Gaming, myself, Wolfpack89. I'm a site dev and admin for Next Wave Gaming, and I do a lot of the social media type stuff.
I am Colmay. I write the ranked articles and do some admin stuff and mainly just play Spike.
Hello, my name's Shadow Venom. I cover the EU side of things. I do the EU analysis.
I'm Scotch. Do the video editing and try to play Smite.
And of course, Half Devil, the support from...
Yeah, I'm the support player for Exposed Secrets.
Beautiful. Alright, well, let's get straight into it, and we'll talk about the picks and bans from the EU scene. Shadow Venom, you want to take us away?
Sure, right. The first thing to mention is that only 9 games were fully played out, so with that, the one guard that actually made it to see all 9 games was Geb, again, with 3 bans and 6 picks. And then a lot of 8s. A lot of 8s this week. We saw Freya, surprisingly. She's popular, but not that popular usually. We have Ram, who is finally banned, even if only once. We have Zong, who is banned out a lot more than picked, and Mercury, who was banned in 8 games, and then in the 9th game, forgotten, it would appear. Niwa picked and banned 4 times each. Ra and Thor were actually picked up 8 times each, but never banned. That covers all the 8s.
Yeah, I mean, real quick, in case people don't know, what happened this week, the reason there were only 9 games played is because Trixtank from TSM came back from vacation, didn't have the SPL client downloaded, and because TSM wasn't ready for a sub, they couldn't field a 5-man team, and so it ended up being essentially a disqualification, a forfeit, and so SK got the win. So that's why there's only 9 games. So one of the things I wanted to point out, and it's interesting to me, because I've been playing Freya a lot in my own personal games lately, and she's really strong, but we're seeing Freya make a rise in the competitive scene now. Anybody have any idea, any input on why that might happen? Why do we see the rise of Freya this week?
I would say that people are starting to get to know how to play Freya the most efficiently. They started to realize how to play the best in AD carry role. Well, that's basically, I think, why she's coming back to life. Until now, it was only a jungler pick, and now people are starting to realize a lot better on how to play as AD carry and understand her full potential as AD carry.
So the other thing I'd like to talk about, especially since we have Half Devil here, is we talked about this a little bit last week, but obviously Geb, priority pick. But then Athena was dominant for so long, and what we're really starting to see is the rise of other supports, namely Bacchus. What's your perspective on that, Half Devil? Like, why are we seeing the fall off on Athena? Athena had 1 ban, 4 picks, and Bacchus had 2 bans, 4 picks. So he was played 1 more game than Athena. But if we go back 2 weeks, I mean, you don't see Bacchus hurt at all. What's the reasoning from a support's perspective?
I don't think it was a lot that something big happened. I think it's a lot more just flavor of the month. And a bit, you can say that, like, Bacchus initiation is really good. And probably, if you already knock the play into the air, there's nothing you can do about it. And the follow-up will just is a crushing damage. And unlike Athena, who's getting countered pretty strong by just Magi's, if you take Magi's, she needs to taunt you. That's an 18-second cooldown. Magi's has a 40-second cooldown, which means you have a 20-second window to taunt again and go for an engagement, which is really hard to do so. With Bacchus, it's really easy to take the Magi's just by the burp, and by any time just go in with a belly flop and engage, I think. But I think it's mostly just flavor of the month, Bacchus and Athena falling down a favor. The Bacchus ultimate, the Intoxicate, just makes you foggy for literally 8 seconds. And nobody beats that ult, and then you miss everything, and you're like, oh, he's not dead now, I'm dead.
Yeah.
I think his ult is really underrated in team fights and stuff.
I think one more thing to mention about the Baggers is I think teams have gotten used to dealing with a Geb and Athena when they're picked up. Like, if any team has Athena, you probably have ways of dealing with the Athena. But because you don't see backers as much, you might not have as many ways to deal with the backers as opposed to Athena, especially given that backers has easier ways to clear Magi's and more CC in general.
Well, he's got more protections and he's got more damage. Especially as
Right.
the game goes on. Maybe that's it.
Perhaps. Can't give you a straight answer because I can't tell. Honestly, I just think I think like Bacchus came back a bit because of all of the Odin picks. When you pick Odin, it's mostly too early game. You wanna dominate the early game and snowboard off at the game.
So you get somebody to jump.
Yeah, and well, nobody can leap out of the golden cage beside Bacchus, or nobody can leap in. So yeah, Geb is like still top support, tier 1, like first pick. But take off Geb, you don't have really a lot of things to do, and Athena is really vulnerable to an Odin ganks, I would say. Unless she ults straight away when she sees someone, when she sees Odin comes close, you get caged. And then you might actually die for it, because the 1-2 combo did a lot of damage. Unlike Bacchus, who can just leap away, or on the other hand, Odin cages someone and you leap on him, because Odin isn't even CC anymore in his cage. So you just leap in it and kill him while he's in the cage.
Well, awesome. I think that pretty much covers pick bans. Well, let's jump straight into the ADCs then. Your ADCs for this week. Top players are Moex at first place with 1673. Then we fall down pretty heavily to Funball at 1416. And then we have RealZX at 1407. Youngbay at 1327. Smek at 1281. And then Shaggy Shank falling down to 1037 this week. After a good performance last week, he fell off really hard this week. The coach did not have any good games. But the person to talk about right now, I mean, is Moak, coming out very, very strong, having a 1673 player score, doing massive amounts of player damage this week, averaging 746.1 player damage per minute. The next highest being Half Devil's very own Funballer at 552, who did take second place this week. But the player damage coming out for Moex this week was phenomenal. He had 89k player damage in 120 minutes. Just great play for Moex this week. Also topping that off with 22 kills, an average of 5.5 kills per game. Great play coming out from
Yeah. He played mostly Rom and Anher this week.
Apollo. Right? I think Apollo. He played versus us. He played Apollo, at least. I can't remember the other games. I remember one Rom, one Apollo. I don't think he played Anher this week.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure though.
He really climbed back up from last week, though.
Yeah. I have to say they invaded like I think 2 games out of the 3 or 4 games. Nasty stuff.
So, I mean, what do you guys think the problem for Shaggy Shank and Youngbay are? I mean, Youngbay and Shaggy Shank, both of them not having very good games pretty consistently. I mean, Youngbay hasn't been able to really top that 1,500 player score no matter what week he's playing in. And then Shaggy Shank having a great week last week, but hitting almost rock bottom this week. What do you guys think's going on there? Either from the in-game player perspective or from our perspective as spectators?
I think at least for Youngbay that he's a passive player. I'm not sure. Like I used to be his support as well. He's a big passive player. He likes to farm and then comes in big. But if his team isn't winning while he's farming, there's nothing to come big to. You come big and they're just bigger and they will kill you. On top of that, as you already saw, C9 had some personal issues inside their team, benching NQ, for example.
We'll say that.
One thing about Shaggy Shank is I think, given the right opportunity, he could actually carry a team just off of his play in the SPL, and you know, you've seen him a lot, you know, I guess in rank queue. But I just wish or hope maybe in the future, you know, more of his skill can come out. And yeah, I hate it for both the teams, for both of those hunters, but they're good in their own rights. But I think you know, each of them have some different issues that they have to work out.
So, talking about the ADCs, look at their farm. Half Devil, you said that Young Bay likes to farm, and it's evident in our stats here. He has the highest GPM with 488 per minute.
Yeah, and they even in wins and losses.
Yes, like even though they've lost, like he is still the highest farm of all the ADCs. So maybe that's why he's kind of been hurting a little bit, because he's not been like super aggressive. But that's just his playstyle, and I mean the mentality is there. It's solid. That let's farm up, and then I'll come in and maybe make some changes, make some plays, and we can pull ahead. Your second highest for the week is Moex with 485, and then Smek at 481. So that's really close, actually.
Overall, Funballer sitting with the most farm though at 492.
Yeah, overall. Yeah, Funballer is sitting there with 492. And that's just because he's winning. Look at his overall stats. He's just putting up numbers. And let's go over to the ADC score for the overall. We have Moex at number 1, Funball at number 2, and looks like Real ZX at number 3. Moex has a overall score of 1593. Closely right behind him is Funball with 1538, and then it drops a little bit for Real ZX with a 1408.
And then wrapping that up, it'll be Smek at 1393, Shaggy Shank at 1342, and Young Bay falling down at 1193. So I think that pretty much covers ADCs. Why don't we flip over to the supports? First place for support is going to be this week is going to be looks like Frezzy at 1879. Second place is going to be Badja at 1644. Just behind him is Half Devil himself at 1637. Then we have Princess Tomatoes falling down at 4th place with 1441. Trix Tank at 1418 this week, despite some dominant performances in the week before. And we have Emily 2 at 6th place at 1388. Cloud9 struggling in 2 roles so far. Coast not doing too badly, but Cloud9 having some issues. I mean, and the scores that really matter for supports are, of course, going to be the damage mitigated and damage taken. And you see if you look at the damage mitigated per minute on Frezzy, it's 791.4. He's mitigating more damage than he's taking, which is he's taking 690.7, which is it's right where you want to be as a support. You want to mitigate as much damage as possible.
That's awesome.
Yeah, playing very well.
And Princess Tomatoes is right behind him. Well, the closest to him, with 1617, and then Half Devil right there with a. Sorry, I didn't see that one. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Badja. Oh, okay. I was like, what? That doesn't. I thought he spelled that differently.
It's like a badger.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Makes sense. But yeah, Badja with 638, and then Princess Tomatoes with 617. Half Devil with 572.
Mitigation.
I don't need to mitigate damage. I win anyway.
Well, if you look over at your damage taken, though, you're taking more damage than everybody else. You have the highest damage taken per minute with 744.
And with only 10 deaths, you have 744 damage taken per minute, with only 10 deaths, which is that's phenomenally good. With that much damage taken, and so you have, you have the 3rd lowest death count. Trix Tank only dying once. Frezzy dying.
Trix Tank only played like once.
Yeah,
just saying.
Granted, he only played 1 game. I will give you that. You played 3 games. You died an average of 3.3 times per game, which is that's nothing. That's nothing. Yeah, I mean, as a support, I mean, even our support scores, you only get a certain percentage of your deaths. We don't count all your deaths against you. So as it factors into the score. So
how many assists did he have this week?
Who Trixtank or
Half Devil?
33, averaging
most.
11 assists per game, with DeFrezzi having 56, which is an incredible amount of assists.
Well, they're winning. That's evident. You could see at all his stats why he's ahead is because he has more time played. Look at his overall time this week. He has 120, which is the highest. So he's more time means more damage taken, means more assists, means everything more. So
Yeah.
Since we're on supports, one thing I wanted to say this week, we mentioned last week that the EU support players' scores aren't quite as high as the NA, but I don't know if y'all noticed, but the North American scene is starting to pick up on the aggressiveness of the EU, the way that they play.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you can, when we go through the NA, you're going to see that change in the support scores. And it's because they're actually taking notes from the EU guys. I mean, if y'all watch the game today, Half Devil was constantly had the timer down.
At some point, I was like, because I was playing on 200 ping, at some point I was like, alright, fuck this. I'm just going to stand next to the speed or red, and I'm just going to try and take it. I don't care if I die. We're leading anywhere. We're taking goal frees. We're probably going to win this game. I don't mind. I want this buff, And I always, I wasn't able to take it all the time because I was on 200 ping, so I couldn't, hog it on a good timing, and every time the buff was taken away from me.
Well, and then you had the one where Zalia was trying to take the buff, and you came in. At least you saved him. You died, but you saved him. So that was all scream worth on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, you are starting to see kind of a change a little bit in the way NA plays. We'll see if the stats reflect it, but it seems from a perspective, as watching it, we're definitely seeing that. I do want to say, by the way, that Half Devil is tied for the most kills this week. He has 5 kills. He has a higher average kills because he only played 3 games, and DeFrezzi played 4 games. So you have the highest average kills per game.
That carries score from support,
right? Sure.
Woo!
You actually have the second highest ADC score from the support role. Just give that up.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that about wraps it up for the support scores. Shadow, you want to take us over into mid and take us off and tell us who leads this week in our mid scores?
Sure. Topping it off this week is Captain Twig with 1725. Second place drops down to Shadow Nightmare with 1494. Third place is Fexus, right behind him with 1427. Right behind him is Optics at 1411. Then it drops down to Lobster with 1311. Granted, only 2 games. And then Carino with 1150 and 6th, last place.
Captain Twig coming back on top this week. I think Shadow Nightmare overtook him last week, and Captain took first place spot again this week, putting out a ton of player damage, having a moderately decent farm, not the top, not the lowest. He's sitting in there at 3rd highest farm with 468, behind Lobster at 477 and Fexez at 480. So doing pretty well overall in the mid lane. Dealing out the most player damage per minute at 755.9. Shadow Nightmare coming not too far behind at 678.7.
Shadow and Captain Twig played lights out this week.
Yeah, they both played very, very well. One of the plays that I thought was actually very well done, it goes well to talk about it because Half Devil's here, was that early kill that Shadow Nightmare got earlier today on Janus. It was a successful invade, and then they got the kill onto Shadow Nightmare, which lets him get ahead against the new mid. He was Janus.
Did you see him portaling back in at like 200 health?
Yeah.
It was awesome, man. I was like, he's going back in.
Who knows? I focus on taking the buffs.
Oh, you had some amazing shields on him too, man, when he was going back in. That was nice to watch.
Yeah.
I hope so. I really doesn't remember anything off, almost anything off that game.
Yeah. Let's see, what else? What other stats we got here? Structure damage coming out from the mid laners. I mean, they need to do some structure damage to take their towers. The highest structure damage per minute this week, at least, is going to come out from Captain Twig at 87.1, and Optics One of the things I've always noticed about Optics is he puts out a ton of player damage, but it never gets capitalized on.
I don't know. Optics is such a good player. I think he's a really underrated player as well.
Yeah.
He will shine eventually.
Yeah. Whether it's on C9 or somewhere else, Optics will shine. It's just a matter of. I mean, this week he didn't do it, but in the past few weeks we've talked about it. He's put out some of the top player damage, both in the overall and in the per minute. And he only had 2 games this week because he had to jungle when Yemen played mid for him. And Yemen played fairly well, actually. Usually we don't talk about subs, but Yemen played a very good sub. Did very well in a sub position for the SPL, dealing out 460 player damage per minute, getting 457 gold farm. So shout out to him. He played very well, having no SPL experience. But back on to Optics, he's always had some of the top player damage and some of the top player damage per minute. But it doesn't seem like Cloud9 can ever capitalize on it.
It might as well. It's some of it is just a poke damage where he probably forced the enemy mid lane back. But I agree on that he does tons of damage, and I guess his team just can't follow it up and do something with it. Take their gold camp, take their buff, go for a goal free.
Yeah, I mean, and he's also has got good positioning. If you look at his damage taken, he has the lowest damage taken, both in totals and in per minute. He's got over the past 6 weeks, 5 weeks of play, he has 174,000 damage taken. The next lowest is going to fall to Fexes at 243. He is 70k lower damage taken than any other mid laner. But he's also dealing out the player damage, which tells you he's not playing entirely safe, he just has the good positioning. So they need to find a way to capitalize on that, or they're going to run into problems. They're going to continue to run into problems.
Team synergy, man. You gotta get those combos down.
And he is sitting at second highest structure damage per minute at 72.6. Then we fall down pretty heavily down to Lobster at 30.3. Fexes coming in next at 28.6, and Shadowhammer coming in next at 27.2. Carino getting off 0.5 structure damage per minute, doing almost no structure damage, but dealing out 8,500 healing this week. So, trying to make up for that a little bit. Anybody else have anything I want to mention in the mid scores before we give the overall totals?
Shadow doesn't need to destroy towers. We destroy them as 5.
There you go. 5-man rotate. 5-man invades, 5-man rotate.
Well, speaking of rotations, that's why Captain Twig has such a high player damage per minute, is he rotates. He rotates a lot. And most of his player damage is coming from ganks on him, or
going over the duo lane, yeah.
Yeah, like that's what he does, and I've seen him do that very, very well. Even though his team doesn't win all that often, he still does an extremely well job about rotating and doing that. And I see Shadow Nightmare doing the exact same thing. So, yep. You gotta pad the stats, boys.
That's something I've been noticing about mid laners. Keeping a timer on the enemy blue camp, and pushing up your wave real quick in mid, and going over there where you're supporting your ADC. To try to either do the speed, of course, which is more valuable, or catch him out at the blue.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, your overall first place is, once again, Captain Twig. He's secured his top spot again at 1467. Second place, Shadow Nightmare takes that second place spot at 1461, only 6 points. Differentiate that, and that could be kills, that could be, just a little more structure damage, although, according to their support, he doesn't need to do structure damage, just say. That could be player damage, whatever. He's very, very close. That 6 points could be anything to take that first place spot away from Captain Twig. Then you got Lobster sitting at third place with 1438. Then we fall down pretty far to Fexes at 1320. Mortality doing fairly well on the support and the hunter score, but falling off in the mid. Optics sitting at 5th place with 1316, and Carino dropping down to 1296. So far, Mortality and Exposed Secrets doing very well this week. Exposed Secrets having 3 people in the top 3. So congratulations to you, Half Devil and Exposed Secrets.
So that takes care of our mid laners. Half Devil, why don't you shout out who's leading our solo laners this week.
Definitely, Maniac is on the first place with 1858. Right after him, on the second place, there's Sayo on 15. Right there, on the third place, there's Zalia on 1654. Fourth is NQ, or former C9 player, because as you all heard, he got benched and then left on 1476. Then on fifth place, Game Hunter, who is really surprising, as we recall, his name, or his nickname, is God Hunter. And we all know him as the guy who got a pentakill on the launch tournament.
Yep.
And last but not least, in Variety, who's the only one who has less than 4 digits number on 984.
That's the first time we've seen a 3-digit score Variety getting shut down this week.
Yeah.
Did you say Zaya?
Yeah, Zelia came. Zelia,
he dominated him that match, man.
Last week, he played very well this week too, having a 1654 score, which is a phenomenal score to have. But landed in third place. Maniac and Sayo doing very well this week.
Yeah, Maniac stepping it up this week, man.
I don't know how they have such high scores and Zelia doesn't. Zelia carries all the time.
Well, he had lower player damage this week. I mean, if we just compare, let me pull up his week 4 stats. If we compare week 4 to week 5, pulling up week 4 here. Week 4, he dished out 51k player damage, 654 per minute. This week falling to 572, while Sayo went up to 682 player damage per minute. So just he dished out a little bit less player damage this week.
I think that contributes to some of the gods that both of them played, or that the top 3 players played this week. You know, if you're going to play a warrior, you're going to probably do a little bit more player damage, per minute, more than likely, and I just think that contributes to that, and plus the way the game's going as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I
think one thing to note.
Let me just say like an average solo score, and then I'll throw it over to you, Ash. An average solo score is going to sit around 1,300, 1,400. So seeing Zelia, Sayo, and Maniac come up above 1,400 is awesome. We're seeing some really, really dominant play out of the EU solo laners, which is what we're used to seeing.
Yep.
Sorry, Ash, I throw it back over to you.
I think one thing to note this week is a lot more focus has gone towards making sure Zelia doesn't get big. Right, we've seen some Vermana bans this week
every
as well.
Every game.
With
every
that
game
with that passive you talked about last week, Ash, I can't imagine why not.
10% chance to win automatically.
Automatically, yeah. But
I argued about it, and I said that 10% is way too low, and it should be like 60 or 70.
Well, I wanted to make it fair. I want to make it a bit balanced, you know. But
wait, Zelia isn't balanced.
That's true.
I don't think
it feels a lot more focus has gone into making sure Zelia doesn't become that big baby. And in terms of Maniac and Sayo, I think they focus more on their individual performance a little bit more than the team performance overall that they have been. Like you find for Maniac, let's say, Maniac and Captain Twig both make plays to benefit the team overall, but not so much themselves. And it seems this week they seem to have made more beneficial decisions towards themselves as well as the team, and that's why we see their scores much higher compared to last week's, I think.
Yeah. Well, let's look into the overall scores for them. We'll move off of that. First place, we have, looks like Sayo this week coming out on top with 1667. Then you have Maniac at 1629. Third place at Zelia at 1577. Less than 100 points differentiating third place from first place. So it's extremely tight. And then we fall down to 1508 to Game Hunter. And NQ sitting at 1445. And Variety this week hurting him a lot, hitting him at 1394. So those are your standings for the solo lane. So let's go into the jungle. Colme, you want to take us off on the jungle?
Sure. First place this week in the jungle is iRaffer with a 1576. Zeros with a in second place with 1474. In third place, Cuvo Fred with 1438. Ninja Demi with 1421. In fourth place, in fifth place is High Rock with 1409. And in last but not least, Frostiak with a 1336 this week.
I mean, less than just over 200 points separating last from first. Jungle is very, very close. And it's going to come down to playstyles. I think this one comes down to playstyles because you're going to have different junglers playing differently, whether you're going to be playing a setup jungler or a player damage jungler or someone who's going to go help take towers. That's going to indicate kind of what your score is going to end up being for that week. Because, I mean, if you look at it, Frostiak this week scoring 6th overall, but getting, 6th in the week, but getting 2nd overall. Which means, I mean, it's just focusing.
I have to say one thing.
Yeah.
They invaded us one game and basically took him out one game. It's basically like he played 2 games while everyone played 3 when he got invaded that second game, I think, versus Mortality.
Yep.
If you look at Frostiak, though, he's got even with that, the lowest player score this week, he's got 594 GPM, which is the highest of any jungler. Which means he was doing exactly what he needed to do to get himself out of that hole, which is farming. Going to your first place, though, for this week, and it's going to be iRaffer, putting on another dominant performance from Mortality. Doing very, very well, securing that first weekly and overall spot.
We're first overall. What are you talking about?
He's third overall. Cuvo Fred is first overall.
Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry. I had that mixed up. You're right. I apologize. Cuvo Fred is first overall. iRaffer sitting in third place overall.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about teams. I was like...
No. I'm talking about just the player scores.
Yeah.
We'll get into the standings here in a minute, actually, right after the junglers. I have those up on my other screen so we can talk about them. But looking back at jungle, you guys might have noticed we used Ninja Demi this week instead of Zindern. That's because Zindern only played 1 game, and 1 game can skew the metrics significantly. So Ninja Demi getting 2 games.
Who also stepped down.
Yeah, Ninja Demi did leave, although he was a sub in for Zindern this week.
Yeah.
Zindern will be back next week. Ninja Bobat not playing for them at the moment as their lead, getting what people have been calling the double benched, not only a sub but not put in place of Zindern this week. So a little bit of controversy there. But if you look at just how much damage Ninja Demi took, part of the reason his score is what it is because he took so much damage, and which did not help him. He died 12 times.
Yeah.
He took over 1,000 damage per minute.
Butterfly, some of his position was just very off.
Like today, he was first blood, and every time I heard an engagement was going on, he was one of the deaths. He was always one of the people dying in the engagements, which, unfortunate for him, is when you're a jungler and you're not part of the scene, like you don't have that respect. So other teams are going to take advantage of that, and they're going to just bully you, every time. And it's one of those things where it's like, all right, he had a really, really bad day today. Like today, I think he played the worst that he's played all week.
Yeah.
So
0-4 Thor before 10 minutes, and Thor behind is just no
yeah,
god.
Thor
You might as well not even be there.
Yeah, Thor playing as Thor from behind, playing as any jungler from behind is bad, but it's just, man, it's really tough. It's really tough, and he really had a bad day today. But what's funny is that in the week, it only put him to fourth this week, fourth place this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although having only 1 week, I mean, you got to keep in mind that first place, iRaffer has 16 games, 509 minutes. He has 2 games and 62 minutes, so just over an hour play.
Right.
So there is a difference there. I mean, the more games you play, the more you're going to see your consistency. So, I mean, the people coming out on top showing more consistency, because you're going to have games where you fall. You're going to have games where you come up on top. I mean, we've seen games where players get over 2,600 player score, and it's just not sustainable over multiple weeks. So just something to keep in mind. Okay. Okay, so that pretty much covers it for the weekly. Overall, your first place is going to be Cuvo Fred at 1556. Second place is Frostiat at 1456, just above Iraffer at 1446. Then it's Ninja Demi down at 1421. Then you have Zeros at 1402, and High Rock falling behind at 1298, having kind of a rough week this week also. With that said, let's get into our predictions for this week. So if you don't know what we do, typically we'll give you an overview of the standings, and then we'll go around the group and basically say, I think this team's going to win, I think this team's going to win, and give a short explanation as to why we think that. The standings currently right now are Exposed Secrets 11-5, Mortality in second at 11-6, one loss separating those two teams. TSM at 10-7, Cloud9 7-9, SK Gaming just behind them with one extra loss at 7-10, Team Coast 4-13. So we will go into this week's games. First game this week, Coast versus Cloud9. Colme?
I'm going to give it to C9. C9, even though they're playing poorly, they're doing a lot better than Coast is. And I think with the changes that they're going to have, it's going to hurt them. Like, you know, NQ leaving. It's going to be kind of brutal for them, but, I mean, they played with the person that replaced NQ today. So, I mean, I don't see them being hurt too bad. They might get hurt when they play against, you know, Exposed Secrets or Mortality, but I don't think against Coast it'll make a difference. So I'll give it to C9.
Okay. Shadow?
I also believe C9 will take it. Coast, I think like realization's setting in, so I think C9 are gonna stride for it more so than them.
Scotch?
I'm going to give this one to C9 as well. Coast has really got their they've got to get their synergy back together before I can pick them again. So
I'm going to give it to. This one's so hard for me because I look at Variety and go, you had such a hard week this week, and several of the other players did also. But at the same time, the only way they have basically to go is up. They can't go any much further down. So I'm going to give it to Coast and say that it takes a week for C9 to work out their kinks. Half Devil, what do you think?
That really depends. Like, I'm such not a guy who can actually peak. I would tilt the way to C9, but as we could already see a couple of times, when Coast comes with their game ready, they blow it up hard.
Yeah.
Like they can give a really good performance, and they are able to beat basically every team. They beat it, I think, Mortality once and TSM once. So they can beat every team if they play the way they used to play. But it most likely won't happen, and C9 would win.
Cool. Let's go on to the second game, TSM Mortality. Colme?
That's a tough one.
TSM was the first team to take a win off Mortality in the second week.
I would say they're both playing really consistent, but I'm gonna go with Luigi and his team. Mortality, I think, is gonna take this one. I don't think TSM is gonna get blown out this week. I just don't know if they can beat out TSM. I mean, I don't think TSM can beat out Mortality. That's what I should say. Sorry.
Okay. Ash?
I think Mortality are going to take it as well. They're performing highly, and they're going to look to finish it off, try and take first.
Ash?
I'm going to give this one to Mortality, and I think it's going to be on the back of Iraffer this week.
All right, I'm going to give it to TSM. Actually, I think they're going to come out and they're going to play strongly. And I think they're going to take the win over Mortality. I think Mortality is going to see a little bit of the struggle as they were seeing last.
I agree with you. I think Fred will carry them on his back. We put them in his pocket and tell them that he will carry them to victory.
Please play Thor, Cuvo. Play Thor.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to Thursday's games. We start off with SK versus Mortality. Homie?
I'm not on the hype train for SK. I think they're very strong. They're not very strong. They're coming back a little better. They put up crazy good scores this week. But I think Mortality is just way too much for them.
Okay. Shadowban?
I think SK Gaming are going to take it on the basis that they've improved, as we could see in our scores this week. So I think they could take it.
SK.
Boy.
I have no idea what you guys are on about here at Next Wave Gaming.
That's this room. It's really bad.
Bad. Yeah. All right, cool. Scotch?
You know what? I'm going to ride with you on this one, Ash. I'm going to go with SK.
I'm sticking. I agree with Kome. Mortality is going to be too much for SK. And they'll lose to TSM, and I think they'll take the momentum back from SK. Half-Devil?
I think Mortality will win based on how Mortality are playing at the moment and how SK are playing. I think SK are a really potent team, and they're really strong, and in a couple of more games they might beat everyone if they play as they are normally, but at the moment, the way they're playing, I don't think they can beat Mortality.
All right. Then we move on to Friday's games. We should get into... Oh, I'm sorry. We have one more Thursday game. I was trying not to be controversial, apparently. I don't want to stir anything up too much because we have TSM versus Exposed Secrets. Call me. Let you dip your toe into this water first. The Half-Devil on the call. Remind you he's listening.
If QFO Fred can do QFO Fred from week 4, then TSM has a shot. But Exposed Secrets is playing pretty much consistent, and they're all putting up points. They're all in the top 3 overall and of the week, this past week. So I cannot say QFO Fred this week, so I'm going to say Exposed Secrets.
Okay. Shadow?
I'm going to say TSM are going to win this.
Okay.
On the basis that their team fights are super strong, and they're going to look to go for first as well.
All right. Scotch?
I don't think they can get first, honestly. unless they win everything and every other team loses everything.
Yeah, they might be mathematically knocked out of it. No, they're not mathematically knocked. It's possible. It's improbable. Well, Scotch, what do you think?
Half-Devil superior support play carries Exposed Secrets to the win.
Oh,
man. I'm going to wipe this off now.
Everybody's like, what do we want to say? No, I had a reason, and I lost it. Because I had a thought, and I can't remember what it was. But I think Exposed Secrets as a team wants it more. Half-Devil, we can tell you're competitive. You want to take the wins. TSM is one of the teams that could potentially, if they don't take first spot, they could take second spot. They're playing very well, but I think you guys want it more. You need to prove that, yeah, you are a playing team, but we deserve to be in the Pro League from the start. And I think Exposed Secrets takes it. I think they're going to come out on top of that. Half-Devil?
I think we're gonna win. I hope we're gonna win. As long as we won't get Fred like on his rampage, get his name, his Cuba Fred, because we lost to them once, I think. We're 2-1 versus them right now.
Okay.
The only time we lost them when we gave Fred a character, he can literally just 1v5 us. And then we fed them on his character, aka Freya.
Yeah.
Freya, that is one of
then I am like the OP character that can carry a team on his own, and then don't feed him. I don't think we'll be able to win.
Cool.
Because I think Zayla can contain Game Hunter, and I think we can deal with the rest of the lanes.
Awesome. Well, let's move on to Friday. We got C9 versus SK. Homie?
This one's tough. C9 and SK. This is the head-to-head. Probably will decide who...
4th place, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
who makes it in.
Cloud9 and 7-9, SK 7 and 10.
Because even if they tie, whoever has the most wins against the other team as
head-to-head
be the
wins.
tiebreaker.
Yep.
So this game will decide who goes into the SPL Atlan,
To the quarterfinals, yeah.
and then the other ones will go to the wild card. So I don't know. I want to say C9, but C9 has a lot of issues. With like we could see, and SK's been putting up some numbers, and they seem to be getting better. So I'm gonna give this one, unfortunately, to SK, just because SK, I think, doesn't have the unstable mentality of a roster change to deal with.
Cool. Shadow?
I'm gonna say SK as well, on the same basis as Colme. SK Gaming are performing better recently, and Cloud9 now have to deal with a new roster change.
Right?
Did
Josh?
you say fanboy? No. Nah, I'm going with SK. Basically for the same reason. The roster change is going to be hard for C9. And
Yeah.
for EU, you do not want to be in that wild card because there are really two strong teams coming up out of the Challengers Cup, and I wouldn't want to be in that wild card.
Agilitas forced 2 surrenders out of Potato Boys today in the finals. 2 surrenders. Not one of their games today went over 20 minutes.
I mean, Comfrey's turning into the next God Hunter, man. The
Comfrey's
guy's
been
playing
well.
lights out.
Oh, and I've seen versus Alia before.
Oh man, you are competitive, and I love it.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
I just competitive when it comes to Soul, and
Cool. C9 v SK. I give it to SK for pretty much the same reasons. I think the roster change still. What I think is going to happen is they're going to come in. They're going to have problems with their roster changes. I think they're going to try to make some changes on Friday, and I don't think the changes are going to work. So I think SK is going to take the win off. Hack Devil.
I think SK gonna win because they're on the uprise, while C9 are on the downside, and they're not doing too good, and now they benched one plan, then he left, and they need to bring another plan. For what I heard, it's gonna be like something really weird. I didn't get the exact details, but something that's gonna surprise me, I think, kind of. And I'd just give it to SK, because
Yeah,
It's
I've
best.
seen some things floating around in the scene. There's people are saying there's going to be some surprise faces. So we'll see what happens. Let's move on to Coast versus Exposed Secrets, another controversial topic. We'll mix it up.
Exposed.
Let's start with Half Devil.
exposed.
Wow, surprised.
Wow.
I don't know, just last game we were versus them, we double killed them in the dual lane in 3 minutes. In less than 3 minutes, so I don't know. I lost hope in Costa.
We'll go backwards here. I'll go next. I say Exposed Secrets 2. Coast is having problems. They're going to end up. They are going to end up in the wild card. Thank you. And I think their focus turns to that. So they turn their eyes away from the SPL. They turn their eyes towards the Challengers Cup and how to beat Agilitas and Potato Boys, because they're pretty much locked into that. So I give it to Exposed. What about you, Scotch?
Yeah, I'm going with Exposed. That's
Cool.
just hands down.
Shadow?
I'm going to say Team Coast, right? I think they're
Oh
going to
my
fight.
god, I don't believe this.
I picked
I'm-
against Cog
I
Red.
may be subconsciously trying to wind up Half Devil, but I think Team Coast can pull something out of the bag.
Wow.
All right, let's. No, we still got Coleman.
There is no doubt in my mind what's going to be the outcome of that game. But I'm going to still say Exposed Secrets will take it, just because Coast can't do what everyone else can. Like, they can't beat the team that's right above them. So, and like Half Devil said earlier, is they might win the early game, but they throw it over stupid things, like trying to dive a tier 1 or a tier 2. Like, it's not very smart of them. So, I would like to see Coast win and be like, hey, we got another win. Same reason why I'd like Thirst over in the NA to win, because, hey, we got another win. But I'm going to say Exposed Secrets on this one.
Cool. Let's go on to Coast v SK. Shadow, why don't we start with you?
Hi, my name is
I
Shadow.
wonder what you're going to say.
Although,
Draw.
No.
what's going to happen, right? The match is going to bug out because both of them will call the Titan at the same time. All their clients are going to crash, and the caster's going to be like, "Well, we have some technical issues. We'll be back with you in a moment," and they won't come back because the match actually finished. It says draw.
Okay.
Draw.
You're like
So
a
what he
half
means
check
by-
in both. Or?
What he means by draw, he means SK. That's what he's saying.
Oh, sorry. Yes, in English that means SK are going to win.
All right, Halfdale. Let's
Cool.
put this next one over to you. Coast or SK?
SK.
Cool. Scotch?
SK.
Oh man.
SK.
SK. Sorry, Coast. We need to see some more performances out of you. May change my mind based on what you do on Wednesday, but got to give it to SK. Exposed Secrets versus Cloud9. This is a little bit more of a tense one.
Oh,
I think Half Devil's gonna.
Have to with the quick.
Come
I think Exposed will take it unless something C9 does something crazy that we all are just talking out of our asses, and on Wednesday they just pull out this giant destroying victory, and then they come in and beat SK on Friday. Like, unless they do something like that, I don't think they'll win it. I think Exposed is going to take it.
All right. Catch.
Frostiac. Pull it out, man. Expose secrets.
Okay. I'm going to kind of agree with Colma here. Unless Cloud9 does something significant and does something to throw off Exposed, Exposed is going to win. I think, hands down. Let's move on to the last. The last day has one of my favorite matchups to watch in EU, which is Mortality versus Exposed Secrets. I love watching these two teams play because it's very obvious that they both want that first spot. It's very obvious that they both want to show that they belong in the Pro League. So, what do you think, Colin?
Like I said earlier with the whole C9 SK thing, I think depending on how their week goes, this could be the deciding game who takes first and who takes second.
Yep.
I would like to see Mortality beat Exposed just because Luigi, but honestly, I think Exposed, their synergy in a team fight, at the mid harpies especially, is a lot stronger than Mortality because Sio never rotates. Like I've said this before, and I always say it, Sio never rotates.
He sits there.
Like he just sits there and farms up, and then he'll rotate if need be. But you have Zalia, who's like, "Oh look, I cleared a wave. Okay, bye. I'm gonna go visit mid lane. Oh, I'm gonna help this jungle buff.
Go take
Like,
your speed.
Yeah, or check your speed. Like Zalia, I think will be too much for Sio. So I say Exposed Secrets.
I'm gonna take it player by player. Zalia beats out Sio. Moex beats out Funballer. Drawing a blank on Mortality support. Who's their support?
Frezzy.
Frezzy. I think Half Devil beats out Frezzy. And then in the mid lane, I mean, you've got Fexes v Shadow Nightmare. I think Shadow Nightmare wins that. And then you've got Frostiac. Again, I give that one to iRapper. So it's going to depend on whether an upset happens in one of those lanes. If Sio ends up beating Zalia, I have to give it to Mortality. If Funballer ends up beating Moex, I have to give it to Exposed. It's going to depend on who wins those matchups first. It's going to be very tight, so I'm going to give a check in both boxes. I can't pick one on this game.
No. This one right here, Mr. Fanboy, he even said it. He said who he wanted to win. You can say it.
I can't.
Yes, you can.
Don't know.
Yes, you can. Just make a prediction.
Prediction.
I
It's
truly don't know.
All it is a prediction. It's not like you
Crystal
actually
ball.
know what's going to happen.
they're not putting us in jail for this stuff
Yeah.
yet.
Point or something here. Exposed Secrets.
Okay.
It was literally like a coin. I tossed a piece of paper. It had one thing on one thing, one thing on the other side, and Exposed Secrets came on top. So that's what I say.
I think this game comes down to the picks and bans phase. I don't think you can ban out Zayu. I think Sio's better on mages. And Frostiac, he might have a little bit of a less of a god pull than iRapper, but I think it's going to come down between the jungler and the solo lane, and I'm going to give this one to Exposed Secrets just because of Zayu.
Cool. Everybody made their predictions on this one?
I didn't, but I'm not sure. I can't take. It's the only game I'm not certain. I want to win, obviously, but it's not 100% that I'm gonna win.
Yeah, we all kind of agree on this one. This is the closest match of the week.
It's gonna be a fun match to watch.
It's going to be a fun match to watch, and I'm glad it's on a Sunday, so I won't be at work. I can actually sit down and watch the game. I'm looking forward to it. I think I'm going to try to convince my family to put it up on the big screen and turn the volume up and say, this is the game to watch today. Because it's going to be so much fun to watch the game and see who comes out on top. And especially depending on where the standings end up. It'll be interesting to see.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Let's go over to C9 v TSM. TSM.
TSM.
C9!
Yeah, C9. C9 all the way.
Alright. Cool. Well, that wraps up everything for us, for everybody here at Next Wave Gaming. Thank you, Half Devil, for joining us today. We really appreciated your input. We hope you had a good time. I think the conversation was good. For everybody at Next Wave Gaming, thanks for tuning in and watching this review. Hopefully we get some great games out of Week 7, 6th week of play. Half Devil, where can people find you?
In Twitter at Half Devil with 2 L's, because Half Devil with 1 L was taken, so.
I know that pain.
This is it so far, and I'm gonna start streaming eventually once I get the money from the land and I'll be able to buy a computer.
Okay, cool. Do you have your Twitch account already?
Yeah, Half Devil.
Okay, so if you get a chance, go over and give him some early follows. Twitch.tv/halfdevil and Twitter.com/halfdevil with 2 L's at the beginning or 2 L's at the end.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's 2 L's at the end, isn't it? HALFDE.
Yeah, I think just in the end.
Yeah, just on the end. Cool. Well, that wraps everything up for us. To the audience, again, I say thank you for watching, and make sure to check us out at nextwavegaming.com. Follow us on Twitter at nextwavegaming, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/nextwavegaming2. Take care, everybody, and we will see you next week.